Let's take a look here at zero-shot prompting. This is when the model can perform the expected task with no prior knowledge or examples provided during prompting. So an example might be that you want to classify some text. So the text here is Andrew is great at teaching GenAI. Do we classify it as neutral, negative, or positive? And so the output, the next thing that the large language model would write would be neutral here. But the idea is that we didn't have to provide it examples of what neutral, negative, positive looked like. It already had that built-in knowledge from when it was trained to be able to perform that task. And that's what we call zero-shot. So few-shot prompting is when the model can perform the expected task with examples provided during prompting. So imagine you have a series of tweets and your model is not capable of doing sentiment analysis, so you're providing examples of what negative and positive tweets would look like, and the idea is that it would predict the next one based on the prior examples. We could also call this in-context learning because you're providing in context in the prompt message the way in-context learning because you're providing it at that point in time. So there you go. Let's take a look at prompt chaining. So prompt chaining is where the output of one LM prompt is used as the input for the next prompt in a sequence. The reason is when the context window of the prompt is too small to complete a single large or complex task, so we break the task up into smaller tasks. So an example would be, imagine we have a movie that we want to watch, there's a movie that we want to watch to learn Japanese, and so we want to take the subtitles file and convert it into English, and then also get grammar rules around it and then provide it in a JSON lines file. This is actually something that we do in the boot camp, and I didn't even realize I was doing prompt chaining when I did it, but I tried to give it a very complex prompt, and it just would not do it. It would just make a lot of mistakes or give me bad information, and so I had to break it up into smaller tasks, and so the thing I had to do is iterate over each line in the actual subtitles file, and say translate each line from Japanese to English. And then I would then ask it to produce a list of grammar rules that it found in the sentence. Then I would then ask it to explain the grammar rule and then provide 5 examples. Then I would format the original line, translated line, the grammar rule examples into JSON file. So again, this is just where you're breaking up a task because the LM cannot handle such a large task, okay? Let's take a look at chain of thought. So chain of thought prompting is when you tell the model to do step-by-step reasoning so it produces a more accurate result. Without chain of thought, you'd say something like, which 2 prime numbers sum to 10? With chain of thought, you'd say, please solve the problem step-by-step. First outline, your reasoning is clear. Logical chain of thought, then provide the final concise answer. This is not a huge issue for larger modern models, but the smaller models, sometimes they just don't know things unless they talk out loud and work through it. So sometimes you get extremely better results by just telling it to think out loud and think step by step. And so that's all that is really happening here, okay? Let's take a look at tree of thought. So tree of thought prompting is where the prompt instructs the model to explore possible states and transitions rather than trying to produce an answer immediately in a single chain of thought, basically creating a decision tree. And we kind of do this in the boot camp with another one where it's the Japanese language construction helper, where we actually define states and tell it how to transition between one and the other. But here's a diagram that you'll see a lot. Every time you look up a tree of thought, everyone's using the same diagram, so I pulled it as well. And so here you see on A, you have input-output prompting. So that's just where you give it an input and you get an output, like zero or few shot. Chain of thought prompting, where we will tell it to think about things through it. Then we have self-consistency with chain of thought and self-consistency. So this is where it produces multiple things and uses voting to come to a final result. I don't think we made a slide on this, but it is another thing that we can do. And then we have tree of thought, where it has multiple ways that it can go through logic. It can add branches, remove branches, but the idea is that it's not taking a linear line. It's going to evaluate multiple options to get to the end. So this one's a lot more complex, but I thought it was just really cool to demonstrate here, okay? Hey, this is Andrew Brown, and I want to see if we can figure out how to do tree of thought prompting. It's not super easy to do, so I'm hoping that we can leverage something like Prompt Hub, where they say they already have an existing template that we can work with. I'm finding all the examples online are showing one with the game of 24, and then the other one is creative writing. So maybe if we can get one of these templates from wherever, we can get started here. But I do believe that they have a button here, Tree of Thought Prompting. And so now we can go take a look at Prompt Hub, which is a place where you can manage prompts, which is not a total bad idea. I'm going to go ahead and sign up here and make a new account, and we'll take a look and see if we can see that prompt in here. So I've just verified my email. I'm going to continue on here, and I'm just going to skip here. Set up your team's key. So we could put an OpenAI key in here, and luckily I do have OpenAI, so maybe that's not a bad idea to go give that a try. Of course, you'll need an OpenAI account to do this. We do this many times throughout this course, so if you're not familiar with this, you'll have to just watch for now, and you can always come back to this video later on. I already have a basic project set up here. You can create new projects. I'm going to go to Manage Projects. I'm going to make my way over to API keys. I clearly already have an API key. I'm going to go ahead and revoke this key. I'm going to go ahead and make a new key, and it's going to be called Prompt Hub. We're just trying to get into Prompt Hub so that we already have an existing template, because they're promising that there's some template here, right? We'll go ahead and dump that key in there. We'll hit save and continue. I don't have anyone else to invite. Let's go and make our way into Prompt Hub. So we are now in Prompt Hub. I want to see some of these templates. Let's go over to here and see what else we have. So what I'm looking for in here is Chain of Destiny. That's funny. I'm looking for Tree of Thought. So that's what we want to find here. So I'm going to go ahead and type in Tree of Thought. Maybe we can get it if we go back over to here and click this again. Okay, and then it'll bring us exactly to the template that we want. And so here's an example of the Tree of Thoughts. One, we'll read through it and try to figure out what we have here. So a prompting method that instructs the LM to traverse many different paths when completing a task. Movie Recommender is used for example task. Update the variable and steps for your use case. So you're a super intelligent movie recommender AI. Here's your task. Your goal is to leverage this information and use Tree of Thoughts method to come to an optimal conclusion. So understanding friends' preferences. Review the hard-coded movie preferences provided for each friend. Oh, okay. Create a list of unique movie characteristics, including favorite genres, preferred actors, and any specific movie elements they enjoy. Using the gathered preferences, generate a list of potential movie options that will align. Evaluate the potential movie options based on each friend's preference. You can assign a value of 1 to 10 to each movie, representing how well it matches its interest. Now that you have a list of movies with the corresponding scores, review the evaluations to select the movies that receive the highest overall score, considering the combined preferences of all friends. Finally, reveal the perfect movie choice, output the selected movie. That's a lot of stuff going on there. How can that do it in all one go? I cannot imagine it would do that. So use the Tree of Thought method to navigate through steps and generate the best movie recommendation for friends. So this sounds cool. How can we go ahead and utilize it? So we can hit add to library. And so now we have it here. And since this is hooked up to GenAI, I'm assuming that we can input the stuff. Here is the task. Okay. So I'm here. Do we have a preset here? This is on Turbo. I like how it shows the price here. That's actually really smart. But I'm utilizing GPT-4 usually. I think it's also more cost effective. And by the way, if you don't have paid, you can just watch me do this and we'll find out here. But I think the version went down here, but I like how they have that. Okay. So I guess my question is, how am I inserting this? Here is your task. Okay. So I'm not 100% certain on how to utilize this. Let's go look at another one here. Article content code. So let's go take a look here and say prompt it hub variables. Like they don't really explain. Prompt hub. They're not really explaining how to set those there. Just give me a second here. Let's find out. All right, so they're suggesting there's a thing called team variables.
Let's go to this one.
So let's go take a look and see if that's true. So we'll go over to here, back to Prompt Hub. All right, well, we can just hit run test and find out what happens. Run test. I think it's doing it how many times? I'm not sure. Uh-oh. How many times is it running? Once, twice, 3 times? So I guess it's running. Great. So now where's the run? Can I see it? Hmm. Well, this is GPT-4o. That kind of looks like this is the output of the last test run 1 second ago. Introduction prompt engineering. Oh, okay, cool. So right away, it's already giving us recommendations. So I guess it actually did all this stuff. So it basically did all of it. Oh, variables. Here we go. Ah, there we go. Generate 10 article ideas for blog posts about prompt engineering. But this is not exactly what we want to happen because we need to read this prompt a little bit more carefully one more time. Your goal is to leverage information for tree of thoughts methods to come to an optimal conclusion. Review the hard-coded movie preferences provided for each friend. Create a list of unique movie characteristics, including favorite genres. Review the hard-coded movie preference provided of each friend. So what we need for this to work is we need 3 friends. So I need I need 3 friends, and I need to know 5 movies they like. Oh, I spelled it wrong. Give me 3 friend names and 5 movie titles they like. Okay, so the idea is I'm just doing this to feed it some kind of data. Okay, and so we can see we have these 3 folks here. We'll go ahead and copy this text. I'm gonna make my way back over to here, and we'll paste this in here. And so now we have that information. It's not pasted the nicest way, but this should be sufficient for this to work. I'm gonna click this again to make sure that is set. That is set. Let's go ahead and run this again. Okay, and so now it should do what it's supposed to be doing here. We'll give it a moment here. All right, so we have a result back here. So step 1, understand friend's preference. I'm going to copy this text over here so we can go somewhere else and just have an easier time reading it. Just give me 1 moment. All right, so I've just brought this into VS Code, and I'm just previewing it because it did look like it produced Markdown. So step 1, understand friend's preference. Rachel seems to enjoy fantasy and adventure films with a mix of animation and live action. Her movie list also includes a mystery film, suggesting she enjoys a good plot twist. His movie preference is towards drama and thrillers and complex narratives. His list includes films with strong performances and thought-provoking themes. Priya seems to appreciate a variety of genres, including stuff. So we go to step 2. Consider the preferences of all 3. Some potential movies that could suit their tasks include The Dark Knight, Lord of the Rings, The Prestige, etc. Evaluating the movie options. So here it looks like they are going through here. So we are getting scored values for them. Select the best movies. So Lord of the Rings is the highest overall score, closely followed with The Dark Knight and Toy Story. The perfect movie choice for movie night would be The Lord of the Rings, Fellowship of the Rings. This epic fantasy adventure is renowned for, etc. So that's really cool that it goes through that. And what I was surprised in the prompt was the fact that they just said use tree of thought. So clearly the model must have knowledge of how tree of thought works. I figure like if you're using a dumber model and it doesn't know that, you might have to explain in more description of what tree of thought is. Probably what we could do is like we go over to here and something didn't know tree of thought. So I am using a smaller model that doesn't know what tree of thought is. What can we do to prompt it so it understands how to perform tree of thought? Outline the steps of tree of thought. Okay. So explain what it is. Outline the steps. Combine explanations and instructions. So I guess the question is like, Is tree of thought one shot, like one prompt? Because I was expecting for tree of thought to be multiple prompts, like chain of thought, or not chain of thought, but prompt chaining, right? Is a reasoning framework with a single prompt. Okay, there you go. So I guess that kind of makes sense about how that could be utilized. There we go. So let's go take a look here at a demonstrative example. And take a look here. So we will use a step-by-step reasoning called tree of thought. In this approach, we'll break down the question or problem by exploring multiple branches of ideas. So outline the steps of tree of thought. So restate the problem, generate possible paths, evaluate and prune branches, expand on best branch, provide the final answer. Okay. So example prompt. You're an AI assistant, so we're going to solve problems using a step-by-step reasoning process called tree of thought. Restate the problem, clearly restate the question in your own words, generate possible paths. Okay, so it's just saying the same thing. So we'll go down below here. So example, question. What is 15 times 14? Restate the problem. I want to multiply 15 times 14. Possible paths. Branch A, branch B, branch C. Evaluate the branches. Quick approach if we recall it. More tedious but guaranteed. And then this is the best branch and expand on that branch. Okay, so that's really cool. That's starting to make sense to me. So yeah, I guess that's tree of thought. There are so many techniques to prompt engineering. Like, I'm not sure if I showed this in a previous video, but if we go over to prompt engineering website, is it this one? There's so many prompt engineering websites now. Some are good, some are bad. Prompt engineering guide. Here it is. Like this one I like quite a bit. And so there's just so many techniques and ways of doing prompt engineering. A lot of times when you are using LLMs, you end up inherently using a prompt technique without realizing that you're doing it. So I think I mentioned this before, but like when we were doing the Japanese subtitle thing, I was using some form of state and transition management, which looks very similar to tree of thought. And like prompt flowing, I ended up using that intentionally as well. So, or prompt flowing, prompt chaining. So I just would say, don't worry so much about memorizing all these prompt engineering techniques. But you'll just find that you will indirectly use them, but it does help to generally know some of them and come back and review to see, you go, oh yeah, okay, I am using prompt engineering. I just didn't realize I'm doing that. There's also a big argument about the difference between prompt engineering and prompt designing. So some folks would call using this just called prompt designing, and prompt engineering requires a lot more technical coding behaviors to orchestrate something a lot larger than simply writing a prompt. I'm not going to fuss about prompt design versus prompt engineering. I'm just considering it all prompt engineering. But yeah, there you go. Let's take a look at CoStar. So CoStar is a prompting framework created by Sheila Teo. And it basically follows this, I think it was called a mnemonic, context, objective, style, tone, audience, and response. So this is nothing super fancy. It's just a prompt template you can utilize. I use something similar, but the idea is that you provided a context. So you say, what are you doing? So here it says, a free online introductory Japanese language workshop for beginners. The objective, encourage people to register by highlighting the quick, fun, interactive nature of the session. Style, engaging, inviting, clear educational tone. Tone, persuasive yet friendly. It's weird that the style says tone, but then we have tone down below. But that's okay. We have audience, busy adults curious about language learning with no prior experience. Responsive, concise, impactful Facebook post. So this is just one of many ways that you can format a document, but because it's called CoStar, I thought maybe it might be easy for people to remember and adopt as a way of making prompt documents to get a result that you want. But there you go. Hey, this is Andrew Brown. In this video, I want to see if there's a way that we can implement React prompting. Now, there are solutions out there that are managed, but I want to see if we can write this from scratch, as I don't believe that it would be very, very difficult to figure out. But maybe what we can do, it looks like there's a video down here, but maybe what we can do is see if we can use ChatGPT to write it ourselves. So I want to implement a LLM solution that uses React prompting. How can I implement this? Okay, and so we'll take a look here and see what we can do here. We'll give it just a moment here. I'll get my head out of the way. All right, so I've asked ChatGPT, let's implement it, but I don't want to implement it utilizing LangChain or Llama Index. Those frameworks would allow us to easily do that, but I really don't want to do that, as I do feel that they add an extra layer that doesn't help us out that much. I'm going to go over to GitHub, and I'm going to go over to our ExamPro GenAI Essentials. Just so you know that prompt engineering does appear a little bit earlier in this course, and so if this stuff is out of your realm right now, you can always come back to it when you learn a bit more coding and things like that. I'm going to open this up in GitHub Codespaces here today, if that's okay. Sometimes using Gitpod, sometimes I'm using GitHub Codespaces, sometimes I'm using local development. We like to shake it up here. But we'll open that up, and as that's opening up, let's give this a read. So we'll create a prompt that instructs the model on how to respond to the React format. Typically, you do something like this. So we'll have a system prompt. So you are an AI assistant that can perform the following steps. Reason through problem by describing your thoughts in a thought section. When you need to use a tool, output an action section with the tool name and its inputs. After the tool call, you'll see an observation and a section with the tool output. Continue the cycle of thought and action observation as needed. End with a concise final answer that answers the user query. The chain of thought in thought sections is only visible to you and not part of your final answer. The user should only see the final answer. So that sounds interesting so far. So the user prompt, what is the capital France plus the capital Germany, right? So perform a single manual React step with an LLM. And so that kind of sounds like something that we would like to do, is to do this manually. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this. And we have lots of code laying around. This is actually old code, I can tell right away, because it has capital C, capital, the two capitals on there. So here it says, we pass in a list of system messages plus user and ongoing conversation, parsing the action observation. So let's go back over to here. And I'm going to switch this over to color themes. We're going to turn this into dark. And I'm going to make I'm going to make a new folder here. Yes, allow me to paste. Prompt engineering, prompting. And we're going to go ahead and see if we can implement this React ourselves. And it's not React the JavaScript framework, it's React the prompting framework. So I'm going to go here and make a basic.py. So this is, or sorry, not py, but iron python ynb. And we'll also create ourselves a new .env file. We'll also create ourselves a new .env.example file. We'll also create ourselves a new git ignore file. I've been using OpenAI quite a bit, and yeah, we'll keep using it. It's fine. I do have like a Claude subscription with, or Anthropic subscription with credits on it, but the only way you'd be able to do that is if you'd had to pay for it. If you don't have the credits or a comparable one, that's totally okay. Just do your best to follow along with whatever solution you have. We do have a whole section where we show you how to programmatically work with stuff in the Workbenches Playground section. So if you have yet to do so, go check out that stuff. But I'm going to make my way over to the OpenAI implementation here, which is over here. And I'm going to grab some of this code to get started with. So here, this one is actually a really good example. I'm just going to copy this and save myself some trouble. And then I'm just going to paste it into here and let it replace it. I'm going to delete this one. And I'll rename this IPYNB. And I'm going to need a key from OpenAI. So we'll go over to here. We'll give it a moment here. I'm going to go over to API login, and I'm going to make my way over to my basic project. If you don't have a project, go ahead and create one. I'm going to go over to API keys. I have one here from earlier. I'm going to delete this key. We're going to create a new key. This one's going to be called React, and I'm going to place this into the basic project. This will generate out a new key for me. I'm going to go back over to here and go into the .env. I'm going to go into the OpenAI one because this is what we need, is these three things. I'll paste this into the example here. Also, while I don't forget, I'm going to do .env here. And then we'll go back, we'll copy this, we'll go up to here. And I'm going to bring this down. And this is the key that goes into the first part. So we'll cut that out, we'll place it in here. And so now I need a project ID and an org ID. So I'm going to go back over to here, and we'll go into API login. And on the left-hand side, we'll go over to basic, into manage projects. Here I can grab the actual thing I want, which is the basic. So I'll grab that. And I believe that was the project ID. And then we'll go back over to here, hit done. And I'm going to make my way over to, I'm getting a little bit confused where I am. Yeah, organization general. And so here we can grab an organization ID. We'll go back over to here. We'll paste this in. And so now we have those 3 set. Okay, so those are all set. Let's go back over to, well, what's going on here? I think I named the file wrong. It's not supposed to be a folder. Oh, darn. I'm going to delete this 1 second. And I'm going to go ahead and copy this again. And then I'm going to paste it in here. There we go. And so this should now all be configured to work. This is not really the example that we want, but let's go ahead and just make sure that it works. I'm going to go ahead and let it install Python Jupyter, whatever it needs. Install Python down here as well. Okay, we'll give it a moment. Okay, so we'll go to Python environments here. We'll choose 3.12. So we'll run this code here. Give it a moment. And then we'll import our environment variables, and we'll just make sure that this still works. Okay, so it does. So now the next thing is to incorporate from ChatGPT some of the outputs we have here. So the first thing is that we need to have this system prompt documents. We'll go ahead and copy this. And I'm going to make a new line here. I'll put this above. I call this one system prompt. I think if it was, I think it's like triples. If we do triples, we can do this. Right, there we go. And so now, instead of having this, we can have this as our system prompt, right? I'll bring this onto a new line. Okay, so we have that. That's good. And we'll go back over to ChatGPT here. And this is our current user prompt. So we'll go down here. This will be user prompt. And so we have that. What is the capital plus that? Okay. So I'll run this. I'll run this. I mean, I'm not sure what we expect to see as a result here, but I'm going to go and bring this onto a new line. Sometimes when we're iterating on this, I don't want to call it like 100 times. We'll go ahead and run this. No problem. We'll go run this. And I want the content in here, so I'll just do this. 1 second. So here I have the thought. The capital of France is Paris, and the capital of Germany is Berlin. The question seems to not ask for a mathematical sum, but rather to combine the 2 capital names in some way. Action: no tools needed for this task. I will simply formulate the answer. Observation: the capitals of France and Germany are Paris and Berlin. Final answer: Paris and Berlin. So that's the first example of it. But let's change it to say, what is the weather in Thunder Bay, Ontario? That's my hometown. Thunder Bay, Ontario, Canada today. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and update that. I'm going to run this again, and let's see what we get this time. So we run that. So it says, I need to find the current weather information for Thunder Bay, Ontario. I will look for a reliable weather source to get the most recent data. Action: get weather, Thunder Bay, whatever. So here it's saying the above action simulates calling a weather in the scenario. I'm using it to gather current data on the weather. Observation: assume I received the weather data for the Thunder Bay, which shows the conditions such as temperature, precipitation, general description. The weather in Thunder Bay is, etc. So the thing is that when you're doing this, it's producing a thought and then we have an action. And so here it needs to call this function. It's telling us right here what the action it wants to have. And so the idea is that we can parse that out and then call that function. And so that is what is happening here. So down below it says, perform a single manual React task is fine. So we have action observation. And so the idea is that, so check if the models produce an action. It did. If so, parse out which tool it wants to use and the input. Run the tool in Python to get a result. Append an observation message to the conversation. Call the LLM, so append an observation message to the conversation. Call the LLM again with the new conversation context. Repeat until we get the final answer. Okay, so here they have this big iterative process. But it's a lot simpler than we think here. So here we have that function. But what we'll do here, like we need some way of parsing out the action. So I'm going to go here and just say, this is what looks like in the text. How can I parse it out using Python? All right, and you could even tell the LLM like how it should display actions. We're not doing that right now, but we're just going to try to figure out how to extract the text that we have. So we'll give that a moment here to just give us some code back. Oh, weird, it didn't actually do the thing we asked it to do. So I'm going to ask it to run it again. It didn't actually do it. So we'll ask it again. So, hey, you didn't give me any code. So we'll just ask it to do that again. So here we have a regular expression where we're grabbing the text. I'm going to see if this will work. So we'll bring this over. I'll make a new line here. So we're importing regular expressions. We're doing a pattern matching here for our thing. And then here we are trying to do our match. Okay, so we are bringing our text. Our text here is this. So I'm going to go and change this a little bit. I'm just going to cut this out. I'm going to say text here. We'll still print it out. So now we have our text. And so then we'll go down here and print this next. And we got tool, get weather, Thunder Bay, whatever, like Thunder Bay, Ontario, Canada. So now what we're doing is we would define a function called get weather, right? And then we'd have an input. And we're hard coding this, so we're not doing it for real, but let's just say input equals this. Or you know what? Let's go ask ChatGPT. How can I get the current weather using an API for Python? Okay, let's see if we can get an example here. Maybe we can implement it for real. Okay, create a free account on Open Weather Maps. Sure, let's go ahead and try that then. So go here and, okay, that's fine, that's fine. Sign in. Well, let's go first take a look at pricing. Yeah, there's a free one, 60 calls per minute, so we'll go ahead and do that. I'm going to just make a new account here. And I'm going to generate a new password here. I'm going to save that. I am older than 16. I agree. I don't want a bunch of alerts, so I'm just going to go ahead and do that. And we will do that. I am doing this for educational purposes. ExamPro Training Inc. Save. Okay, and so now I need an API key. We'll go over to here. I have a key right there, so I'm going to go ahead and copy it. I'm going to go back over to here. Let's take a look. And so does this key have a very particular name? They're not specifying a particular name. That's okay. So I'm going to go back over to here into our code. I'm going to make go to here. I'm going to add a weather API key. What's that thing called? Open Weather? Open Weather Map. And I'll just go back to our original example here. Open Weather Map. Like that. Okay, so we have our key in here, right? So we'll go back over to here. And let's go back to our code, which is here. There's a lot going on here, so hopefully this just works. So I'm going to copy that. And we'll go back over to here. I'm just going to paste this in here. And so we do have that API key somewhere in here. Here it is. And so in here, I'm going to go ahead and say os.environ.get, and this will be whatever the name of this is. Okay, so we have this. It's like it's not knowing what that is. Let's say import OS. I'm pretty sure we imported that already, but I'll import it twice. We have the main part here. I don't need a main part as this is a single function. So what I'm going to do, instead of having the API key here like this, I'm just going to take that out like that. And then I'm just going to grab the API key this way right here. Okay, and then we'll take this part out. I mean, this is pretty straightforward, so I'm just going to go ahead and delete this part out. So we have the city name, the API key, use imperial for Fahrenheit. Oh no, we want metric, we're Canadian. Or at least I'm Canadian, I'm not sure what you are on the other end there. And so we have a big example here of data. That's fine, I'm gonna go ahead and just take this out like this. And so this is our simplified function, and we can pass in our city name here. So the idea is that if we got get weather, right, which we do, then we want to call this. So I'm going to define this function, and we have these two things here. So I'm going to go to our next line, and we'll say if tool name equals get weather, then we just call this function. Okay, and then from here, this will be the tool input. All right, and so I'm gonna go up here and just say weather info. And then we'll go down here and just say print weather info. If we do have it, I'll just indent this. That way we'll have less of an issue. We need a colon there. Okay, so this should, in theory, work. The only thing that we need to do, I'm just going to fix indentation here. It's acting a bit funny. Is we need to reload our .env file here because this will have those credentials. So I've reloaded it. I'm going to go all the way down here. I'm going to run this again so it loads in that environment variable. And let's see if our tool works. So it is trying to call it 401 unauthorized for the URL. Okay, so it's saying that our URL is unauthorized. Is it though? I mean, it's active, right? There's the API key. Okay. May have to confirm my email. Just give me one moment. All right, so I confirmed my email. So now I'm curious if this is going to work now. So we'll go back and run this again and try this one more time. Unauthorized for URL. So maybe it doesn't like the URL that's here. So let's go back over here. I mean, this is generated by ChatGPT, so it might not be utilizing the latest thing here. So we'll go over to the API. And so this says 3.0, so you can already see that there is a difference. How to make an API call. And so we see this, right? So I'm going to go back over to here. And so this is data weather. So I wonder if there's like a weather API endpoint like this one. To get the access to current weather minute forecast for 1 hour. Okay. Okay. How do I do it by town or city? Let's click on this again. API docs. Type in city. Contains 4 endpoints and provides access to various data. So we have current weather and forecast. I mean, that sounds like what we want. Yes. And so the API actually looks like this. Latitude, longitude, excluding part. So maybe you can't just say city anymore, or maybe the thing was out of date. So here, then we'd have to get an additional step to get the longitude and latitude, which is kind of annoying. But you know, if this works, then we'll just utilize this. But you can see how it wasn't as straightforward as we thought it would be. So we're going to go ahead and we'll paste this in here as such. And I mean, it has like the query name this way. So really we want is lat lon. I don't know if we need part. We probably don't need part. Okay, and we don't need the API key here. It's already in here. So what we really need is the lat and the longitude. So this is not going to be like a perfect example, but like, let's just assume that we knew what the latitude and longitude of Thunder Bay was. So latitude, longitude, Thunder Bay. Which one's the latitude and longitude? I'm going to go over here. Can I? All right, we'll go over to here. Decimal 90, negative 90. Can you represent as decimals? It's probably fine. So latitude is 48.3809. So that's the latitude. And I know it's not really how we want to do it, but I'm just going to hard code it in. And this is our longitude. And so then we'll go back over to here. So even though it's passing the city name, we're not actually utilizing that anywhere, just because we found out the parameters do not match what we're doing here. Oh yeah, we need a colon here. All right, so we'll give this another try here. We'll run this. We'll try to get that tool again. And it says unauthorized for 401. So here it's attaching the API key. Is the API specified a little bit different here? This is app ID. Was that other one called API? Maybe that's why. No, that's right. So I don't know. We generated a key, so in theory it should work. But it's not. Anyway, it's not working, and so I'm not going to fiddle around with this forever. And so I'm just going to go ahead here and just say, like, just give me mock data. So go here, back over here. Give me mock data for the following structure. Okay, and we'll just mock it, and then we'll continue on from here. There we go. So we'll go ahead and grab it like this. And I'll go back, and we'll just go here like this. I would love it to work, but you know what? We're not gonna lose a lot of sleep over it here. We know like what we expect to receive back here, and so I'll just comment this out for now. There we go. And so I'll go down below here, and so that will now return this, and we'll go here, and we'll get back our weather input. And so now the idea is that if we go back up to our original one here, so note the above action simulates calling a weather. In this scenario, I'm using this thing. So we'll go back over to ChatGPT, and let's read what we're supposed to do next. Yeah, so I think we need to specify its observation. Let's go back up to here. Check if the model is producing act. If so, parse out which tool it did. Run the tool in Python to get the result. Yep. Append an observation message to the conversation. Call the element again with the new context. Okay, great. So we have that there, right? And so we have that text prompt from earlier. And so I think it's, if we go here, print and say text. Okay, so we have this, right? And so it's saying text equals plus observation plus equals, I'll just do this, text plus new line, observation, colon. And then here we have weather info. We'll do this here. And then I'm going to print out updated text. It's kind of okay. I'm not sure why it's acting a little bit funny, but we'll just go ahead here and make a new line here like this. It has one little extra space there, but I don't think it's going to hurt it. So now what we'll do is we'll go ahead, back up to this part here, and then copy this here, and go all the way down, and we'll go to a new line. And so now we're going to go to the next line here. So this is our text, right, that we got back from that. So I think it's assistant we write back here, right? And then here we have our updated text. Well, hold on a second. This is still user prompt, right? And then we got back our assistant text, which is the text. And then we have our updated text here. So we have kind of a bit of a history here. I assume that's what it wants us to do, right? And so we'll run this. And then we'll say, got to go back all the way up to that other one here. I'll call this text 2. And then we'll run this. Final answer in Thunder Bay, Ontario, Canada today is -5 Celsius. So one thing I'm thinking is, like, while we're doing this, we could have probably, instead of having like four conversations here, we could have probably just appended it. But I believe it feeds it all in here, so it doesn't really matter. But I'm just saying, like, maybe we could have just taken that assistant prompt, and I don't know. But the point is that hopefully you understand how React works. The idea is that you're making a thought, you get an action, you have an observation, and then you have your final answer. And so there we were able to do that. There are frameworks that will automate this stuff, but it's better to know how the manual moving pieces work, so it's a bit easier. You can tell the system prompt exactly what you expect the tools to be. You can even tell it exactly what tools it has, because there it was just making something up, because it didn't know that it could just make up tools, but that's what it was doing. But we'll call this one complete, so we'll say React example, and there we go, okay? Ciao. Hey, this is Andrew Brown, and in this video, we're going to take a look at OpenAI's API. And so if we go over here to product, their UI on their website is awful. I don't know why they make it so hard to find it, and it's very slow loading, but if you drop it down, you can get to API login. And we actually do use OpenAI quite a bit, just because I find this one of the easiest ones to utilize. It's not the best, it's just what I'm very comfortable with. But when you want to start working with it, what you're going to end up doing is creating a bunch of projects. So here, there's a project I don't really want anymore. I'm trying to manage my projects to delete this one if it takes a moment here. But I'm going to go ahead and just delete it. But you come with a default project, as you can see here. And you might have to fill in your company information. You probably do. But the idea is that when we want to work on something, we first create a project. I'll just say, basic. Okay. And then from there, we want to create an API key, which we can find here on the left-hand side. And you can see that I have a key from a different example before. We'll open this up, and I'll just say basic. And I'm going to go and select that project and create it. I'm going to make my way over to here. And I think I already have, yep, I do, an environment open here. So I'm going to open that up. But I use OpenAI quite a bit in this course, so you're going to see me again and again and again do it. So I don't feel bad if I'm kind of glossing over it. But we'll go over to here onto the left-hand side, and we'll just give it a moment. And we will open up OpenAI, or use OpenAI. So we'll say OpenAI, and I'll make a new file here called basic.ipy here, ipynb. We'll make another new file here called .env. We'll make another file in here called env.example. And we'll make another file in here called .getignore. Okay, and I believe the key is called OpenAI API key. So that's what it's going to be called. We'll go back over to our API key. We'll copy it. We're going to paste it into here. I'm going to go over to the left here and copy this part, and we'll go back over to here and paste it in. Now, we actually need a few other things. We need a project ID, And we also need a org ID. Maybe you don't, but I'm pretty certain that I do. And so I'll go back over here to up here to the manage projects. And from here, I can grab the project ID, which is right here. So I'll grab that here and we'll drop that in there. And then the next thing I'll do is go to general and grab my organizational ID or organization ID. And so we have that there. And these are supposed to be in the .env, of course. So we'll bring that over there and then just clear these out. But I'm not sure why I'm missing my OpenAI API key, because I thought I just pasted it in here. Maybe I did not. Let me go take a look at the files. Oh, I pasted in the .gitignore. Well, there we go. That's where it went. So this, I'll cut this out, this whole thing. I'll cut this out here, and I'll bring this here, and I'll drop it into here. And then we'll go over to here. We'll ignore the .env as per usual. And so there's a few things we'll need to install. The first will be pip install -q python.env, and then it'll be OpenAI. And so I'll go ahead and run that. We'll go to the next line here. I'm going to pull from maybe Streamlit, as we do have some code here. I need this stuff here to load in the .env file. So that will load the .env file. And now we just need some code examples. So if we go here, there should be a way we can find it if we look up the API reference. They have cookbooks down here. I never go to that ever, though. Oh, that's cool. Like, we want to do structured outputs. They have an example here. Some of these are pretty complex, so I'm not really sure. I'm just looking for something that's really basic. Maybe we'll just look at the API docs. And here we'll go to our quick start. And so, yeah, it's OpenAI API key, so I got that right. And here's a very basic example, so we'll go ahead and copy that. And we'll go back over to here. We'll paste it in. That doesn't look like Python. That looks like TypeScript or JavaScript. So this example here is, yeah, we want Python. So we'll go over to this one here. I knew right away that was not Python. And so we'll paste it in here. And I actually use GPT-4o Mini quite a bit these days. So we'll go ahead and run this and we'll see if it works. And it does. Now, I do believe function calls themselves. Write a haiku about recursive in programming. Oh, okay. So I was wondering like why it was being kind of weird there. But you know, I do believe that OpenAI has a free tier. I'm right now utilizing the paid tier. I do have some credits loaded up. But I found like even if you load like $5 on these things, they last quite a long time. Though the credits do lapse over a year, so you make sure that you do utilize them, as that can be very unfortunate. But that will be our OpenAI example, and we'll call this one done and dusted, okay? So we have now utilized OpenAI, but I do want to point out that OpenAI does have a really, really good playground. I mean, these videos are called, these are like playground videos, but I've really been focused on mostly working with them programmatically. But if we go over here to the playground, we have the chat, we have a bunch of options. There's not much to talk about, but it is a way that we can work with this stuff, and we might come back to these environments later on and play around with them, okay? Hey, this is Andrew Brown. In this video, what I want to explore is utilizing the Anthropic Workbench, as that is another way to work with Anthropic. A lot of people might just go ahead and try Claude from here, and I actually do have a paid account, which I got just for this this boot camp, as usually I'm just sticking with ChatGPT these days. But the idea is that there's another portal somewhere here. If we go over to API, okay, and then we go to start building. And so that brings us to console.anthropic.com, but this is bringing us to the Anthropic Workbench. Sometimes they call these workbenches, sometimes they call these playgrounds. I believe that they call theirs a workbench. And so we are now in here. Yeah, we see workbench up here. I guess the question is like, can we utilize this in the free tier? I think that we have to buy credits to utilize it, but we can just find out by working with this directly. So the free plan is for evaluating capabilities before commercial use. So it sounds like we can utilize this for free initially, and let's say my key here. And let's just see how we can programmatically work with Anthropic Claude. So here we have a key. I'm going to go over to our GitHub repo. I'm going to go down to GenAI Essentials. Okay, I'm going to go open our code base in GitHub. I'm going to delete this old space. We'll use GitHub code spaces here today. It doesn't really matter what you use as this is all serverless, but I'm going to use GitHub's code spaces here today. So we'll give a moment for that to launch up. All right, so we have launched this up here. We got color themes, and I want to just change this to a darker theme so I can see what I'm doing. There we go. And I want to, we do have one for Amazon Bedrock over here, which is working with their APIs, but I'm going to make a new one here. I'm going to call this one, whoops. We'll call this one Anthropic. And in here, I'm going to make a new file that I would like to call, I guess the question is, should it be a workbench or should it be the CLI? I kind of like working in notebooks. So maybe we will make this a notebook here. So I'm going to go ahead and just say basic.ipynb, which I believe is how we make the book. And we'll go ahead here and we'll just start adding code. I'm going to use the whatever the default kernel is here. So we'll install and enable here so that we can get going. We'll give that just a moment. All right, so that's now installed. We'll go ahead here and just choose whatever the default environment is. And so we'll go back over to here. And we have our API key. I'm not ready to use it just yet, but I think what we can do is just put it into our .env file here. As I'm getting pretty good at loading external environment variables. And I'm just going to save that temporarily. I'm going to go ahead and make a new .getignore. And in here, we're just going to ignore the .env as I don't want to commit that to my repo. And I know that we will want to install, whoops, sometimes I get those 5 numbers there by accident, but we want to install python.env. So that will be one thing we'll absolutely want to install. I need to figure out what the Anthropic library is called. I do not know what it is. So if we go back over to Workbench, I know they had like that beginner stuff that they were showing us stuff, but I want to get some code. So we'll go over to here. And so this looks like a good start. It's interesting. We have other implementations. We have for Vertex AI, which is cool. And then we also have the Bedrock implementation. We'll go over to Python as that's the version that I'm going to mostly be utilizing is Python everywhere all the time, even though my favorite language is Ruby. We'll go ahead and we'll paste in this code example. And so here it actually wants to load the environment variables, which is perfect. So I'm going to copy this over to here, and we're going to set this value as such. I'm going to go ahead and just make a .env examples here. And that way, when I commit this, other folks who are running it can follow along with their own key. So we'll go back over to here. And so this is the default one that will get loaded in. So I think we don't even have to set a key because it will get pulled in. But we will have to load python.dev. So it's like .env, like import.dnv, import.env, and then .env.load. It's not auto-completing, which is fine. But I'm just going to go to another example where I know that I utilize this. Here we go. And so I just want to make sure, without a doubt, this gets imported correctly. There we go. Okay, and so the library that we need to install here is Anthropic. I mean, that kind of makes sense. Let's go ahead and see if we can get her installed to go here. Probably could have done a -q here to make our lives a lot cleaner. There we go. And so now we'll do our import. And here it's coded for a very specific version of Anthropic. We'll go ahead and run that. And it says it's a deprecated model. So it looks like your credit balance is too low to access the Anthropic API. Please go to billing, etc. So, I mean, we just want to evaluate it, right? And so maybe this one in particular is not something that we can utilize right away. And so if we go here, what if we went to like an older one like Haiku, like this model in particular? I mean, I know I'm out of credits, but like I thought I could evaluate it. Maybe I can't. So let's go take a look. Anthropic Workbench. Does it have a free tier? I mean, if it doesn't, that's totally fine. However, please note that the API is subject to commercial terms and services. Okay, so which model can we use for free? All right, but it's not telling us how. So yeah, it's not exactly telling us which one it is. And so I was hoping that we could go in here and maybe we could find a very specific model. Now there are some older models here, so maybe if we choose this older one here, there's no easy way to copy it, but I'm gonna go ahead and hit try it. No, that's not really helping me. So maybe I'll go right click and inspect to get the content here. It's frustrating they just don't make it easy to copy here. And so I'm just using inspector to try to grab that value. So maybe if we try this older version of Haiku, then maybe we can use it for free. Let's find out. I don't know for certain, but we're just trying some things out here. So I'm going to go back over to our example here. I'm just going to say model ID, and I'm just going to paste it in as such. I want to keep both of them around so I can quickly switch between the two. And so I'm going to go ahead and just grab this one here. To me, it'd be crazy if they even had a free tier just because they're always exhausted in terms of their resources. But we'll go here and just say model ID. I'm going to comment out the top one here, and we're going to try this again and run it. And it still fails. So clearly we need to have a newer model. So let's go over to here to maybe a newer model. And I'm just going to go and try to grab this one next. Actually, I can probably just grab it from my inspector window. I'm not fully tapped out here yet. I just want to see maybe it has to be the latest model, and that's why it's still not working. And so we'll go back over to here. And I'm going to paste in this one instead. I don't think anything changed. So yeah, I think I'm just going to have to buy some credits. And that's not a big deal, but I was hoping that I could show you something with the free tier, but at least you know that you're not really going to be able to easily get free tier. Let's go over to settings. Let's go to billing. I'm going to load myself up with some stuff here. So I'm going to complete setup and get going here, okay? And I'm just showing you a little bit. I just clicked on here, so I'm just showing you a bit of the step before I fill in some of my personal information. I guess we're a small business. We are based in Canada. It's for both, I suppose. What task will Claude be used for? Educational purposes. Will Claude be used to provide legal medical advice? No. Will you be incorporating our API into any products or services intended for users under the age of 18? No. And so I'll hit continue. And now this is where I will have to hide my screen. So I'll be back in just a moment, okay? All right, so I set up billing, and I think for now I'm going to just start with $5, as that is a small amount. Auto reload credits when the balance reaches a certain threshold. I'm not going to do that here today, but I'm going to go ahead and just complete the purchase. And so in theory, the purchase should be completed, and I should have those $5, but I'll give it a moment here. There it is. And so now I should be able to use the API. So let's go over to here and take a look at what we have. So we'll go back over to here. I'm going to go ahead and run this here. And so it should pick up. It says at least one message is required. So now it's not an issue of whether it works. It's just the fact that we don't have a message filled in here. So I'll go up here. I'm just going to put in messages. Also bump up the font here a little bit. It is a little bit small. Okay. And we'll bring that on down. And I'm going to go ahead and bring this here. And so now the next thing I need is an example of actual messages. So we'll just say messages API Anthropic. Now, I honestly find the easiest way to use Anthropic is via Amazon Bedrock, but use whatever you need to use. We'll say Python here. We'll just type this again, Python. And so I'm just trying to find that example of it. Yeah, so it's role and content. So that is very straightforward. I'm going to go ahead and just copy that from wherever this is here. We're going to go ahead and give this a paste in. I'll probably fix this up a little bit so it's less of a mess. Okay. And yeah, we'll just leave it as this and see what happens. And we'll just zoom out a little bit here so we can see what we're doing. So at least one message is required. Oh, you know what? We didn't actually replace this value here. We'll go ahead and give that a run. So there we go. So we got a response back. Very, very straightforward. But yeah, nothing super exciting here. I know there's other capabilities that Anthropic API has, but I really don't investigate their individual ones because I generally use Anthropic through Vertex AI or Amazon Bedrock, but sometimes they'll have functionality that is only accessible through their APIs. Let's go over to their API reference. And I'm just looking down here to see if there's anything interesting. So we have messages, which is pretty straightforward. We can stream messages. We can list models. We can do batch messaging, which I would assume would be more cost effective, just like OpenAI. There's the legacy one. I assume we wouldn't use that anymore. There is an admin API, but I can't imagine that that's something we'd ever really want to fiddle with. Then we have Amazon Bedrock and Vertex AI down below. But yeah, I guess what I was looking for was some of those beta features, because there's always really interesting things that Anthropic can do. So we'll just say like Anthropic, well, actually down below here it says Ask AI. So what are some of the beta features via the API I can use with Anthropic? So I'm always like hearing really cool things like being able to control your screen and stuff like that. But where they are, they're not clearly here in the main API. So maybe their AI thing can help us. We'll just give it a moment here. That's the one I'm thinking about. Computer use beta. So allows you to interact with the computer desktop comments. Here's an example of the code. And we don't actually see, oh, there's the example. There we go. And message batching, here it's saying it's in beta. I don't think it's in beta anymore. I think it's just part of the API now. I'm not sure how out of date it is. But yeah, I mean, that's pretty straightforward. We can go back over to the Workbench itself. I don't think there's anything exciting here to talk about in the Workbench. Okay, yeah. So, I mean, something that the API supports, I believe, is tool use. So, I guess if you wanted to test tool use in here, that's something that you could do, which is kind of interesting. And so I guess we have an example there. Do I want to show tool use right now? Probably not. If we do something with, let's say, RAG, then we could come back to that. But right now, I'm not that interested in showing off tool use. But yeah, there's your basic starting place with Anthropic. I'm going to go ahead and commit this stuff here. So just say Anthropic example. Okay, and so you can see it's not super complicated. The only thing that I did not like, and I mean, I understand why they did that, but they forced you to put in your Canadian business number for taxes, and I suppose you're supposed to do that, but I like just to fill out forms, and I had to go ask Baco for the business number. I'm going to go and make sure I get rid of the API key, as I do not want to have issues here. We'll go ahead and we'll just delete this key, and now we're in good shape, okay? Ciao. All right, so we looked at SageMaker and also Azure ML Studio, but let's still take a look and see if we can run notebooks in Google Cloud. Obviously, I have Google Code Lab, but let's see if there's something directly in here. I honestly don't remember. But we'll go over to Vertex AI, because if there was one place it would be there. We could also just type in notebooks at the top here and see what we get. And so we have Workbench. So that might be a way of, yeah, I think that's their managed way of running notebooks. It is. Okay, great. So why they call it Workbench, I don't know, but it is one way of doing it. I already have an existing project here, so you'd have to create a project. I keep using my FreeBSD, and I never seem to clean up my projects. One day I will. It's just managing projects in Google Cloud are kind of a pain compared to something like Azure Resource Groups. So we've now enabled it. That was really fast. And we'll go ahead and create a new instance. We probably should be paying attention to the cost. So over here, it's showing us it is $1. So that's kind of expensive, but maybe we can choose what we're running underneath. Yeah, and so here we can see we have, I mean, these are our environments. And I guess they're just kind of pre-built environments for us. We're not really choosing exactly what we want. All environments have the latest GPU libraries installed. Okay. So we have Debian and Ubuntu. I mean, I like Debian, but let's go over here. Does this one become cheaper? If we switch over to that. No, it does not. I'm going to go back over to just Python with Intel MKL. What is Intel MKL? You think I'd know? I know usually mostly all the stuff. Oh, math kernel library. Okay, yeah. But you know, I was hoping that I could choose. Oh, here it is. Okay. So down below here we have our configuration. So C3 was what we were trying to launch earlier for something. But you see we have a few different options. We have AMD, Intel Skylake. I want something that's just going to be cost effective. So And I only want a single vCPU. Oh, I don't know. Let's choose N1. Is that cheaper? I just remember Skylake being cheaper. So I went here, and now we're getting into something more reasonable. This is even cheaper than ML M3 Medium, right? So we have a lot of options here, but again, I'm not trying to run something for real here. Look how much memory I have. So this isn't something that you run a real workload on. It's just me trying to show you how to launch up the notebook, okay? So we have US Central 1, Iowa. This is totally fine. I'm going to go down below. We're going to go ahead and create this. All the other settings are fine, and we will take a look and see what we get. Really happy about that cost, though. That's really good cost. I don't know if it has a free tier, to be honest. Here it says, Vertex AI Workbench user managed notebooks is deprecated and will support. Recommend you migrate to the AI Workbench instances. Oh, is that what we're doing? Okay, is that what we're using right now, the instances? User managed notebooks. Jupyter Lab 4 is now available in this. Well, how do I know what it launched? I don't even know what it launched. Managed notebooks? Okay, I'll give this a refresh here. I don't see anything. I mean, I definitely am creating one up here. See all activities. You got to turn on that MFA. Nobody make fun of me for not having my... I'll get my MFA turned on, don't worry. Before the bootcamp starts, I'll make sure my MFA is turned on, okay? But I'm not sure. Is it launching or what's going on? Executions. No. That is, I hate that because I can't tell if it's installing now or not. And I don't have any notification that suggests otherwise. So I'm going to give this another hard refresh. Okay. And so I'm on instances here, right? Like, I don't mind launching two. I just have to pay attention to it. So I'm going to go ahead and create new. Defaults. This is fine. Is this experience a little bit different? Oh, did it take me to a much more... No, not really. I'm not sure why this is so different. Create new. I don't want a T4. No, thank you. I wonder if that's what Colab uses. But here we have an EC2 standard for 20 cents an hour. Why was the other one giving me so many options? Here we go. Instance. What does user manage look like? Manage notebook. Well, what did we have just a second ago? Why is this experience completely different? Whatever. I'm going to go over here on the left-hand side. I'm going to go to instances as that's what it's recommending us to do. I'm going to create this new one. I don't even know how to get back to that other interface we just had. That's totally fine. And so here it says EC2 standard for, I'm going to go advanced options. I just want to see if I have a little bit more flexibility to change my machine type. And so I'm going to go over to N1, which is it any cheaper? Oh, it is. Okay. But I don't know what happened to my my other one there. And this will idle after shutdown before minutes. I'll say range 10 minutes. I like that. That's good. I like that. So we'll go ahead and do that. That's like the lowest setting I've seen so far. I think, anyway. But yeah, I'm not sure what happened to that other notebook. And I thought like in my notifications it would show up here. I guess not. Again, just still clicking around here. Yep, nope. I don't know what happened to the other one. I'm sure in a month, Baco's going to be like, hey, Andrew, you spun up something that has cost down here. We also have Colab Enterprise, which I'm not obviously going to use. I'm not an enterprise. But yeah, I guess they have that as well. But we'll stick with Workbench here. And we'll just wait for that to become available. Yeah, so do we click into it? Yeah, we're just waiting for it to start, I guess. Okay, so we'll hold on tight. All right, so yeah, it's up now. I had to refresh, as sometimes you have to do. Let's go ahead and open up Jupyter Lab here. Okay, we'll just give it a moment. Nice little Google Cloud logo. And here we are. The experience is obviously a little bit different. I don't recognize some of these here, Notebook Executor. So it looks like they have a little bit differences here. We have a little nice notebook template here. Yeah, some things here. I'm gonna just stick with the regular Python for now. I'm gonna go ahead back to the launcher. We'll choose Python 3 IP kernel. We'll do our usual pip install transformers. Nothing exciting here. Okay. All right, I guess we modify the hardware here. So yeah, it kind of reminds me of like SageMaker Studio Classic in that there's a few more little integrations. I actually prefer SageMaker Studio Classic as opposed to the new SageMaker Studio, but AWS wanted to change it. So yeah, we installed it there, and so now we have another environment that we can work in. So if you did not know that, you can do that. I'm gonna go ahead and delete that here today. And so that is another place where we can use notebooks in the cloud, okay? All right, in this video, I want to take a look at Cohere, and so I'm going to go ahead and sign into Cohere. What I really like about Cohere is that they have a very generous free tier, so you can get started with them very quickly. And I've already created an account before, so I'm just connecting here. And so now I'm in my account. Obviously, we could attach billing and usage here. I do not plan on doing that here today unless I need to do so. But we're going to make our way over to the API keys. And you can see I already have a key generated from prior. I think I'm still using this key, so I'm going to actually leave it around as I have somebody building something out for our bootcamp with it. But I'm going to go over to GitHub GenAI Essentials, and I might already have an environment already running here. So I do. So I'm going to go ahead and just open that in the browser. Of course, if you do not, then you will have to launch one in GitHub Codespaces or use whatever you like here today. And I'm going to create myself a new trial key. And so this will just be example key. And so we'll go ahead and generate out that key there. And so now we have our example key, which I think we can look at any time. So that's totally fine. And so we're getting this environment spun up here. But yeah, Cohere has its own playground. So you go over to here and they have a playground. So we have chat, classify, embed, and generate, which you do not use anymore. But I like their playground because it really does give you a lot of quick examples very quickly on how you can utilize it. On the right-hand side, you can see they have tool use. They have connections to other, or connectors to other things like doing web search, which is very nice. You can provide it the response format so that you can get back structured JSON if you provide a JSON schema file. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff that could be done here, but again, just want to show you how to work with this programmatically very quickly. So if our environment is spun up, which it is, I'm going to make a new folder over here, and we're going to call this one Claude, or not Claude, Cohere. I apologize. And we'll go ahead and we'll make a new file here called basic.ipynb, and I'm going to make a new .env file here called .env, and then I'll make a .env example, and then we'll make another one here called .getignore. In the .getignore, I want to ignore .env, so we'll go ahead and do that. If I have yet to do so, did I commit the stuff from last time? I did. But we'll go over to here, we'll add some code. I'm going to assume that it's pip install Cohere, so I'm going to go and say install. I'm going to do -q Cohere. We'll also want python.env. I'm going to want to make sure that's a percentage. I'm going to make sure that I want to bring in from this one this here. So I'm going to copy this over, as we want to import the .env into our file here. And so now I just need some Cohere code. So if I go to chat, I wonder if they have, yep, they have code up here in the top right corner. We're going to go ahead and grab this example, and I'm going to go back over to here. I'm going to paste it in. I need to grab my API key from here, so I'm going to go ahead and copy it. I can click the copy button. And it looks like it's not saying what it's supposed to be, so we could just hard code a value here. I'm going to go ahead and paste this in, and it's going to be called my Cohere API key, and that's what I'm going to call it. I'm not sure if that's what it's supposed to be implicitly called. Sometimes we can look that up. I don't always care to look it up. And so in here, they're saying this is where you load your key. So I'm going to do os environ. So I'm going to have to also include in here import os. But we'll say os environ.get. This will be Cohere API key. So that will bring that over here. Obviously, it wants us to have a message here. This is set up for streaming, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with streaming. We can absolutely do that. It looks like we already have some chat history in here. So I'm going to go ahead and bring this on down a little bit. I'm not sure if this is their older API, because I'm pretty sure that they standardized on utilizing, like there's a newer format. So I'm going to go ahead and say Cohere API, because that kind of looks a little bit old to me, right? And if I go to their docs, just want some examples, API reference. So it says chat version 2, right? So I go here, and notice it says messages. So this is really what we want. I mean, we can obviously do streaming, but this is actually what we want, because I think that maybe in their portal it's a little bit out of date, which is totally fine. It also looks like we have some variants here if we're trying to do different things like documents or tool use. The documentation is really, really good for this platform. And we're going to go over here. I'm just going to replace this with this version. This is using Command R+, which is totally fine. It already has information for us in here. I don't know what it uses as a default to load the environment variable. So I'm just kind of looking for that here. Just a moment. Sorry, Baker was asking me for my baster. He's making a turkey. But anyway, I'm back. And so, yeah, somewhere in here, there must be an indicator in terms of what the envar is for it. So just look up Cohere envar, because maybe there is one. I mean, theirs is calling it that. So maybe I have guessed correctly, and it will actually automatically load that one in. So I'm just going to assume that that is correct. And we'll go ahead and we'll just run this. And then we'll run the next one here, and then we'll run the next one here. And so we do get an output. Yep, and we get a response. So there'd be like a little bit more work that we'd have to do to format this response, but yeah, that's as simple as it is working with the Cohere API. And again, it has a generous free tier, which is really nice. I'm going to go ahead and delete our example key, as I do not need it any longer. I'm going to go ahead, we're going to add this here and just say Cohere API. And so yeah, that would be a very good one to utilize if, again, you have no spend. This one is very generous. The other thing is that their models, you can also download them from Hugging Face. So they have them in another format. I'm not sure if I wouldn't call them open source, but they're openly available to utilize and infer locally. So I don't think there are limits based on that. You can use as much as you want, but obviously for commercial use, it'd be a different story. So it's nice that you can have a model that you could use serverlessly or download and utilize it as much as you need to until you need to put it into production. But there you go. All right, let's take a look at AI21. So AI21 is known for models that have much longer contexts than other ones. So if you need a lot of text, like large documents, that's where this one can come into play, and it can be very, very useful. But let's go ahead and see what we can figure out here. I believe that they do have some kind of playground here in API. But we have chat with Jamba or build with Jamba. Actually, I didn't know you could chat with it. Let's go over to here. And I guess they also have a chat environment, just like any other one. So we'll go over here and take a look. We'll say continue. And so now we are in Jamba chat. I can just say, hello, how are you? Okay. It says, hello, I'm doing well. How can I assist you today? So it would be really interesting to see how this one would perform against other AI-powered assistants, but I don't think this is intended as an AI-powered assistant. This is more just a demonstration of what this thing can do. Let's go over to start building, as this is really what I'm interested in. And so now we have, this is the playground. So we have chat, conversational RAG engine. And so I could see how this could be really good for large code bases. Let's go over to view code. And so we have some code here. And as per usual, we're going to go over to GitHub, and I'm going to make my way over to GenAI Essentials, and I'm going to go ahead and open this in the browser. Okay, and we'll just give that just a moment. And so that is now opening. I've had this environment open from previous videos, but of course, there's nothing special that we were doing here that is out of the ordinary. But yeah, it looks like we have a JavaScript and curl option, but mostly it's Python. So we'll go over here and we will give AI21 Labs a try here. So say AI21 Labs. And we'll go ahead and make a new file here called basic.io. IPYNB. And in here, we'll add a couple new code blocks here. I'm going to grab these here, and we'll bring them on over. And I'm just going to bring this one up into its own. I like to do the import separately if I can. And we're going to want our pip install. I'm going to do -q, and we're going to bring in AI21 and also python.env. And from our previous examples, I'm just going to split here and go to maybe our Cohere example where we've loaded our imports here. I'm going to go ahead and bring this on down as such. Maybe take that one out. We might not even use the import OS, but that's totally fine. Let's go ahead and give that an install. And it looks like we're going to need a key. So I'm going to go ahead here and make a new .env file. And we'll make a new .env example file. And we'll make a new .getignore file. And I think I spelled that right. We're going to ignore the .env file. I'm going to go over to here. Sorry, back to basic. And I like how it shows us exactly what the key is supposed to be called. Not everybody does that. For this one, it does, and it makes my life a lot easier. So clearly, we're going to need a key. So let's go back over to AI21. And let's see if we can find a key. Let's go over to settings, to API keys. It looks like we already have a key, which is interesting because I don't remember generating one, but we'll go ahead and regenerate it. Maybe they give you one by default. Okay, but where's the key? How do I get the key? Do not share your key with others or expose it in the browser or client in order to protect the securities. View the usage of the key. Okay, how do I use the key though? Where do I get the key? Okay, so AI21, how do I access the key? Oh, you know what? I bet it's copied it to my clipboard. Let me see. Nope. That's something like when I press this. Are you sure? Yes, let's rotate it out. Okay. Oh, it's over here. Copy. That is not easy to see. Whoever did the UI on that needs yeah, they need to not do that. So we can load it this way. That's totally fine. We probably can take it out and we'd probably still load it. Here it's using Jamba 1.5 large. I'm not sure what their latest one is. We'll go over and say AI21 models. Because there is, yeah, there's like isn't there like a newer one? Let's go over to pricing here. No, I guess we just have mini and 1.5 large, which is fine. But let's go back over to here. And so we have this one here. We have a bunch of stuff in here. Like I don't plan on putting any documents or tools here. We're just testing the messaging formatting, which is very boring. Also, we're not printing anything out here, so I assume that we need to print back a response. So I'm going to go ahead here and just say response and just say print response. And then we're going to need some messages in here. So I'm going to go and say messages. And I do not know what format it wants, but let's just assume it wants the usual role content. So we'll say role user, and then we'll say content. Hello, how are you? Okay, and we'll go down here, and then we'll go and paste it in as such. Right, and so now let's go ahead and see if we can run this stuff. So we'll do this one, and then this one, and then we'll do this one. We get an error back. It says, object has no attribute model dump. And here it's talking about Pydantic version 2. I mean, I don't know if I need to specify exactly what response format oh, well, first of all, did we even place this in the messages? We did do that. But I don't plan on using documents or tools. I don't plan on having a stop here. Everything else is fine. Let's try this again. Object has no attribute model dump. So it does not like our messages. So I need to find some example code. We'll go over to documentation here. We'll say get started. And let's see if we can quickly find an example with the API. So yeah, so far not seeing it, but Python SDK, let's go down to here. Okay. So it needs to be in a very particular user message format. I've seen this with a few APIs, not all of them. but some of them do this where it's structured, and I guess maybe that's what it was talking about when it was talking about Pydantic. So let's go back over to here, and it looks like that's already being, no, it says chat message, but we have user message. So I almost kind of wonder if like this stuff is older. So I'm going to go ahead here and just do this. I'm not sure why there's inconsistencies with the doc, but sometimes these companies do not have time to go and update their docs, which is not a good idea, but it's just what happens. And so here we have messages. I'll just go ahead and copy that. Okay, and so yeah, it's doing some of the formatting for us here. Let's go ahead and run this. Well, first we'll run this, then we'll run this, and now we get a response. Okay, so that is a way that we can start working with AI21. We obviously haven't covered the advantages of AI21, but this is just to show you how you can start to get working with AI21. But as far as I understand, their big pitch was the fact that they have giant context windows. So if you have very large documents, then this would be a model that might perform very well under that. We'll go ahead and just commit our code. So we'll just say AI21, and we'll consider this one done. And I will see you in the next one, okay? Ciao.